Hey everybody, today I'll be focusing on the CubeComp MTDX WeatherCase camera. This is likely to be a dual post, being uploaded to both CubeComp MTDX and Cube Computer channel. Here you're looking at the WeatherCase camera that I designed back in 2011. I designed the case back in May 2011, and it was originally used to house my former DXG 567V camera during thunderstorms. As some of you know, I like to film thunderstorms. I've been interested in thunderstorms since I was a kid, and I wanted to do it in a safe manner to where I could deploy a camera outside but not be outside during a storm. Over the years, the WeatherCase camera has seen several improvements, the most recent being the conversion of the current Kodak Z6 to run on lithium-ion batteries. This allows the camera to film much longer than it ever used to. With these particular cells, I can record for around 4.5 to 5 hours. So that means less time going out and having to change batteries. Let's say during days that you have lots of thunderstorms moving through. One of the first major improvements I did to this camera case was the mounting of the microphone on the exterior of the case. This was done, I think, in 2012. Yeah, it was done in 2012, because prior to that, the videos did not sound nearly as good. They sounded muffled, and of course you couldn't hear things very well because the micro was just recording everything inside the case and not outside. So mounted the microphone outside, which again made for a huge improvement. Also, I wrapped the entire case with this aluminum tape to try to deflect sunlight and lower internal temperatures of this thing, because it can get quite toasty inside if it's sunny outside. See this right here? I installed back in the winter to help prevent snow and ice from accumulating on the front of the case. Yes, I use this thing year round. I don't use it for just thunderstorms. I also use it for filming winter storms. This thing has seen 7 years of hard use. I mean, look at this. That used to be a much darker red, now it's almost faded completely clear. I'm gonna have to fix, looks like I'm gonna have to fix this again. This right here keeps popping loose. Go figure. I installed this to help shield the microphone from getting wet so easily. And also I'd also installed this to help prevent, or to help get some fresh air inside the case, which helped a little bit, I think. But the thing is, I want to make sure that we didn't get water inside here. I'll go ahead and start the camera up, so that way you can witness it operate. Again, this is one of my two Kodak Z6 cameras. And the card actually filled up, I do think. Let me try to record something. Let's see if it records. Nope, card is completely full. It recorded yesterday for 4 hours, 12 minutes, and 15 seconds. I filmed a passing thunderstorm. Didn't actually hit us, but it missed us to the east. I used this to film just in case it actually did hit us and get rain on us. So, yeah. So it works very well for that. And of course, guys on Cube Computer channel may know this is what I call the 18650 mod. This was the most tricky 18650 mod I've ever done, because the Kodak Z6 natively runs on 2 AA's. In other words, 2.4 volts nominal when you have rechargeables, versus the 3.6 volts nominal from a single lithium-ion cell, or in this case 2 in parallel. It involved running a diode in series with the power supply from the cells to step down the voltage just a little bit, to where when this camera thinks the batteries are dead, which is around the camera thinks the batteries are dead at around 2 volts, which obviously that's way too low for lithium-ion chemistry. So when this camera is getting about 2 volts, or no, excuse me, yeah, 2.2 volts, something like that, the batteries are right around 2.9 and 3 volts, so it works out perfectly. Makes full use of the cells and doesn't over discharge them. And we'll stand back and get a closer look at the WeatherCase itself. Not the WeatherCase, but the tripod it sits on. I've been using this tripod since 2012. It's an older tripod that I had laying around, and I didn't really care if it got rusted out or whatever. As you can see, there's quite a bit of rust here on the handle. And you guys may wonder, how does this thing not tip over during a thunderstorm? Well, simply put, I have holes drilled through all 3 legs. Not currently using them right now, but I have holes drilled through. And what I do here is I just, yeah, the holes are actually down further. That's right. Yeah, back in 2014, I think it was, one of them years, one of the legs on this thing got bent, so I had to shorten it down just a bit. But anyways, I had these zip ties wrapped around the legs, and I used 10 stakes to fasten this thing to the ground. This thing has seen, sorry about that, this thing has seen winds in excess of 60 miles an hour. It has also seen up to quarter-size hail on a couple of occasions. So yeah, the WeatherCase camera has done me very well. It has gotten some very great footage over the years. However, I think it's time to not retire this WeatherCase camera, but give it a companion. So yeah, for the past several years, I have been wanting to create a second WeatherCase camera. Because let's be honest, my options for filming thunderstorms were essentially the WeatherCase camera, on the porch, or inside. And there are several occasions where I would have loved to have gotten a second view of a storm from out in the yard somewhere. So having a second WeatherCase camera would definitely enable that. You're looking at the Kodak PlayTouch ZI-10 camera that I use for filming storms. This one usually gets put on the porch. This particular camera I've also been using for filming building construction time lapse at work. I've been doing that for the past a little over 6 months. Been using these particular cells for that. Camera runs for over 8 hours. It will actually fill up a 32 gigabyte card before the batteries run out, which I think is pretty interesting. So here's our donor camera for the second WeatherCase camera. It is an Ativa D33F. I got this camera back in, I think it was 2011 or 2012, one of them years, and it was originally purchased to be used as a replacement camera to my DXG567V camera back in the day, because that camera was not all that great. However, this camera, although offering the capability of shooting in 1080p, the audio sounded absolutely terrible. I mean, it was just horrible. This is the microphone that the camera used. This little bitty guy. I mean, look how tiny the thing is. So yeah, the audio from this camera sounded equivalent to that of an answering machine. And it's a sad reality of a lot of budget cameras like this one here, is in several occasions they made them perform very well at shooting video, although lacking features like autofocus and stuff like that. They shot decent video, however the audio was just terrible. It was absolutely horrible. For several years this camera sat in my mom's computer desk drawer just collecting dust, and it didn't get used for at least 5 years. It just sat there, collected dust in the drawer, and happened to see it, I was like, I'm going to give this thing a second chance at something. You know, since I had managed to improve the performance of several cameras by replacing their microphones, I figured perhaps if I'd done the same with this little guy, we could make it into something decent. See, the thing with the Kodak ZI-6 is, although it has very good audio, much better than a lot of cameras I've dealt with, there's one huge aggravation I have with the ZI-6, and this has to do with anything involving low light. The camera automatically switches over into a slow shutter mode, which kind of blurs out the video a little bit. Not as far as focus, but the frame rate is just it's awful. It's just absolutely terrible. Yeah, that's why I replaced it for my videos on Computer Channel. But also, the thing is with the ZI-6 filming lightning at night, it was not all that great at many times due to the slow shutter. The PlayTouch rather does not have slow shutter, and it actually shoots very good lightning video at night. But I wanted to have a WeatherCase camera that could do the same. This Ativa camera does not shoot in slow shutter in dark situations. It doesn't drop the frame rate, essentially. I mean, now the ZI-6 still shot in 30 or 60 FPS depending on what you had selected, but during low light it would switch over to slow shutter, which would make the video appear to have a much slower frame rate and have drop frames and stuff like that. So another good thing that the Ativa camera offers is the fact that it runs on a single cell MP60 lithium-ion battery, which means it will be very easy to 18650 mod. And of course, 18650 modding is a must for the WeatherCase camera. That way it can run for long periods of time with no maintenance. Let's say if we have a chain of thunderstorms come through, which there have been times during the summer months that we'll have thunderstorms train one after the other. The last thing you want to do is have to run out in the middle of a lightning storm to change out the batteries because the batteries went dead. At least with this, you don't have to worry about that because the lithium-ion cells last a lot longer, especially when you had two of them in parallel. So 18650 modding this will be very simple. And I did manage to correct the audio issue somewhat by changing out the mic. Now you see I just have a wire running out the camera. Yeah, this little microphone used to be soldered right into the board. The same board that has the CCD on it, or CMOS sensor on it. Well, if we get a good focus here, you'll be able to see those wires better. There we are. Yeah, and there's glue on it too because they put glue around the wiring as well. Just two long bare wires that were bent around and were soldered into the little board. Yeah, it's interesting. The little board used through-hole mounting rather than surface mounting for the microphone leads, so that made changing out a little bit easier. Pretty simple. Just desoldered the old mic, used some desoldering braid to get rid of the old solder, put the wires into place, solder them in, and you're done. So I have a microphone right here that came out of a laptop. I've already tried it on this camera, and it has made quite an improvement in sound. Not as good as the ZI-6, mind you, but it did make an improvement in sound to where I think it will be acceptable enough for a WeatherCase camera. And of course, again, the ZI-6 still has an advantage in a way due to being able to shoot in 60 FPS. I've gotten some very nice storm footage in 60 FPS in the past. Okay, so in order to make a WeatherCase camera, you have to have something to put the camera in to keep it dry from the rain. I've already located a decent container for this. It's very similar to the one that was used for the original WeatherCase. It's your typical food container, and there's a lid to it. And again, back in 2011 when I designed the original WeatherCase, that's how red the lid was to it. That's how much it's faded over the years. Hard to believe it, but yeah. 7 years ago is when I created this thing. Okay, everybody, here's an update on this camera. Yeah, I forgot to shoot some video after I had initially put the thing together. So I have 18650 modded it. Of course, put the battery holder in place with the fuse and all that good stuff. And put this thing into service for a bit. This is the outer lid to the case. And I have this little viewing window on the side, so that way I can actually view the screen while the camera is inside the case. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the case wherever I put it. Yeah, that'd be... Let's see if I can figure out what I've done with the thing. Okay, so the case is out here on the front porch on the tripod still. But it's just your typical food container. This window in the front here is for the camera to actually look outside of to get the view. And of course the entire thing is wrapped in aluminum tape. This tape helps deflect sunlight and heat. It does help lower the internal temperatures of this thing, so that way the camera does not overheat. But even with all this stuff in place, I still did encounter some issues with this little Ativa camera. Let's go and talk about that just a little bit. So essentially what would happen is I would deploy the camera out to the yard. Let's say the sun's out, and the sun's out for a while. As temperatures start to heat up inside the case, the camera gets a little toasty. Not actually too hot for the camera to operate, not hot enough to like melt glue or anything like this, but it gets pretty warm inside there. Now of course the WeatherCase number 1 with the Codec ZI-6, it's tolerated it for years and never had any issues. But as this camera would be recording inside the case, out in the sun, things would get hot, the video would actually start to get blurry. The focus would get out of whack. Is exactly what happened. Because, for example, on one of my first recordings of this, the day after I had got this thing going, the sun was out and then it came up with a thunderstorm. So I had this thing out recording, the storm coming, sun was out, so temperature inside the case got a little warm and the camera got out of focus. But once the storm got in and it started raining, you could see the raindrops very well. The raindrops looked crystal clear, but the trees in the background were fuzzy. What would happen was this thing would get, the camera would get out of focus. And once it cooled down, it got back into focus. So yeah, that's kind of an issue I've had with it, but I did manage to fix it. See, the lens you're looking at on the front here? That's not the original lens of this camera. That lens assembly came off the DXG567B. Yep. So that pile of junk inside that bag over there became useful. Yeah, it's a bag full of just random camera parts, video camera parts and accessories and whatnot. Just a bunch of junk, really, I think. But it came in use today. Because what I did was I actually chipped off the front of this camera's casing to get access to where the lens assembly is. It gives you a good view of that. There's 2 screws that hold it on. At first I thought these little crappy leaf spring like things were just expanding, or they were reacting to the heat causing this to get out of focus. But no, it wasn't those. Because what I did is I pulled them off and I bent them down to increase the tension of them, but that did no good. It still did the same thing. So what I did was I managed to salvage the lens assembly off the DXG567V and just thread it on in place of where the original lens was. So this here is the original lens from the Ativa video camera. And this is a good example of fixed focus lens. And this is why they call them fixed focus lens. Instead of having optical, not optical focus, but autofocus, to where, for example, you see how the camera focuses on the plexi there, but you go right back here and it will focus on this little piece. Sometimes it might take a minute to figure it out, but there we go. That's autofocus. Now, a lot of cheap video cameras, for example, the camera I've been using for all these years, the Kodak ZI-6, and before that, the DXG567V, were fixed focus cameras. Now, a lot of fixed focus cameras, the way they're designed is like this. Let me go ahead and pull a good working example out of my junk here. Okay, so this is the parts off of the DXG579V, and if I wiggle this off, I think anyway, there might be a screw I have to take out. Let me see here how hard did this one have it. Oh yes, whoop, it off on the floor, of course. Anyways, this is an example of a fixed focus lens. And this is when it offers the functionality of being able to focus into macro. A lot of cheap cameras, they have an infinity and a macro switch on the side of them that you can flip back and forth to adjust the focus. Now the ZI-6, for example, you had some in between. It was like the DXG567V. So this is infinity, and that's macro, but there was also some in between. And that's why I was able to, in many cases with my former videos, I was able to get a good focus in on different distances because of this little slider. But there were also many times I would forget to adjust it as well. So again, fixed focus. You have this retaining piece that's actually threads in to the circuit board. This black retaining piece here threads into the circuit board. It is like, I had a second one in here somewhere that was already loose. Now Murphy's Law says I won't be able to find it. Okay, I have an extra one here, no worries. So this is a little piece here, and there's typically 2 or 4 screw holes that bolted down to the circuit board where the CCD or CMOS sensor is. And on top of that you have a spring-loaded assembly that holds this lens in place. Now, cameras that don't offer the ability to switch over to a macro focus, they just simply, I think they just thread in to an assembly kind of like this. Now this is also a DXG579V lens that I had. It just threads in. Now I'll talk a little more about that here shortly. But essentially, the thing offers functionality to where you can adjust it back and forth for macro and standard or infinity. When you push it up, there's just a little ramp that the thing presses up on, and it raises this lens off the CCD or CMOS sensor just a tad bit to give you a closer focus on things. So, with most fixed focus cameras that at least I've seen, they all work around a real similar principle. This outer piece here actually has threads in it. So here's the lens that came off the Ativa camera. You may be able to see the, if I can get a focus on it. Man, the Sanyo camera is acting up on me here lately. It's not wanting to focus. Not wanting to focus in is easy. There we go. As you see, there's threads in there. So what they do to focus these things in the factory, they thread this down into the assembly, and once they achieve the proper infinity focus with the thing set to infinity, once they get the proper infinity focus, they put a little bit of super glue into the threads and lock it into place, or more or less Loctite. So that's sort of what I had to do here to replace this little assembly. I managed to take this whole piece out of here, clamp it onto a vise, but into some channel lock pliers, and with another pair of pliers, break the super glue seal and thread this off completely. And luckily, just so luckily, the lens off the DXG 567V fit perfectly. And see, the reason why they were the only ones that fit perfectly were because they had the same exact orientation of zoom. See, these little lens assembly offer a little bit of zoom. Now, for example, the ones off the DXG 579V were way zoomed in when I tried them. Probably because the CCD or CMOS sensor on the DXG 579 is a little bit larger in size than what is on this little Ativa camera. It's kind of similar to the Kodak ZI6. The little CMOS sensor on the ZI6 is tiny. As you can see, it's also very similar in design. This here has threads on it that are thread locked into place. Essentially, that's where you get fixed focus from. It's focus at the factory and it can't be adjusted. So, back to the whole moral story here. I think this lens, the one that came with the Ativa camera, something about it was causing it to lose focus when it got hot. Something was expanding or contracting in there, making it lose focus. So what I did is I pulled this out and put the DXG 567V lens in and got it focused in. And I put the camera back out in the yard today for a little bit, and so far so good. It seemed to do just fine. I'm not certain at this yet. I'm going to have to do a few more trials with it and see for sure. But I think this little lens here was the culprit. Once I got it replaced with the DXG 567V, I may have said 579V before, I don't know, I can't remember, but yeah. 567V DXG camera lens installed in here. This thing works perfect. Now, this camera has some drawbacks to it. Obviously, the sound is one of them. Now, with the different mic that I have on here, it did make some improvement to sound, but I'm also noticing it still isn't quite as good as it would be with, for example, the Kodak ZI6. The ZI6 and the DXG 567V had amazing audio, at least amazing microphone drivers. Because, that one there and this one here are both not this one here, but the other WeatherCase ZI6 were retrofitted with external mics, and they sound amazing. They sound absolutely amazing. Compared to this. I noticed on my computer, without the sound equalization enabled, you can barely hear the audio from this camera, even with the volume wide open. So that's gonna be kind of a con with this camera. I'm still going to use it, but the audio is just not going to be quite as good as the ZI6. But the pros this camera has is the fact that it shoots in full HD 1080p, and also in low light. It doesn't turn on that crappy slow shutter. This thing does amazing with sunsets. I've already filmed a few sunsets with it, and it does phenomenal. Little details like airplanes and stuff just show up extremely well in full HD. Yeah, I kid you not. So very well pleased with it. And the reason why I'm okay with running, this in full HD is because the files that it creates are not too large in size. It's pretty conservative with file size, I think. It shoots an AVI, actually, which, at least from what I've noticed, is not exactly the most conservative format, but hey, it seems to be doing okay so far. So yeah, this is a neat little project. It was nice to rescue this camera from my parents' drawer, or better yet, rescuing it from getting thrown away, because that's what was originally going to happen to it, I believe, because this camera was known as a piece of crap to me and my mom. we hated the thing. It just, it shot great video, but the sound was just awful with its original mic. So yeah, I did a new modification today. I managed to retrofit a better lens onto this thing. So yeah, that's an update so far.